Well, today we're going to talk about something called plagiarism. That's right, Robo Lawyer. Yes, students get into a lot of trouble with plagiarism at university, and quite often it's because people they don't know what plagiarism is. They get an assignment back and they're told they've been plagiarised. Sometimes yes, that's right, Angela Learning. Sometimes they can go to exclusions committees because of it. Yes. Well, do we know what plagiarism is? And a lot of people think they do. It's what they say it's where someone copies someone else's work. Well, I guess you can copy other people's work or copy material out of books. But if you acknowledge it and acknowledge it adequately, that's right, Pencil Dog. Yes, you've got to, it's no good just putting a reference at the end of your assignment and saying you acknowledged it. You've got to acknowledge it adequately. Well, that's not plagiarism. Your teachers might think it's not very good assignment writing. That's right. So you mightn't get as many marks as you perhaps could have, but plagiarism is something which people have been trying to grapple with for a long time, because we come across cases where what looks like plagiarism is actually where a student hasn't referenced properly. Now, plagiarism is defined as publishing the thoughts or ideas of another as one's own. I've been thinking about this for a while, and what I think is with plagiarism, it's where a person is trying to mislead or deceive the person viewing their work or marking their work that certain material is their own original thoughts, their own original ideas, when in fact it's come from somewhere else. So I think the important thing about plagiarism is, if you're writing something, you need to think about whether or not am I giving it sufficient references and acknowledgement so that it can't say that you're misleading or deceiving the audience into believing work which is not yours is really yours. So that, Robo Murine, you've heard about misleading and deceptive conduct. Well, yes, that's found in a lot of pieces of legislation these days. It seems to be the way we're going in attributing fault, especially in, say, something like advertising, whether it's misleading or deceptive. And it doesn't matter necessarily about the intention of the person. Like the intention of the person might, sometimes a person, even when they're plagiarising, mightn't intend to be misleading or deceiving. But if there's not sufficient attribution, that means references, acknowledgement, then it could be said to be misleading and deceiving. And I think that's the way to go. That might be the way to look at plagiarism, because I know we've had a lot of problems, and I think all places have a lot of problems where people have been accused of plagiarism, and it's really not, because plagiarism is a form of academic misconduct. Yes, Pencil Dog, it can be quite serious, can't it? Yes. What's that, Robo Lawyer? What if you just copy something directly from a book and put your name on it? I think that's plagiarism, Robo Lawyer. That's fairly clear cut. You're trying to mislead and deceive other people into believing that that's your original work. what's the other thing we want to talk about? Oh, working together on assignments. Yes, I think that's something which is very important, because a lot of students also get into trouble there. But you've worked together on your assignments, you do. What at the end you will go away and write your own, but you talk about it. What's that angel learning? You wouldn't trust those other people, so you don't. And that's a very wise idea. Look, in a lot of cases, people are going to work together and discuss assignments, discuss questions, come up with ideas, all that. But at the end of the day, if it is not a group assignment, you've all got a hand in your own work. And certainly, it should not be word for word with other people's. It should not be very similar. It depends on the questions. Yeah, so I tell you what happens sometimes. In law, especially in law, as we know, students say, "I've been told we should put material into our own words and not just copy it directly." Well, if you're copying words from a statute, for goodness sake, don't put them into your own words if you're going to discuss the exact wording of the statute. Sometimes when you're writing about a section in legislation, you might put it into your own words if you're trying to condense it and you're using it in discussion. But if you're going to be analysing particular sections of legislation in detail, it's important that you keep the original wording, because you change a word in a piece of legislation and that's changed that legislation. It's not the same piece of legislation. So that's very important as well. So, okay, well, so we've actually looked at three things. We've looked at what's plagiarism, and if someone thinks that your work could be misleading or deceiving them into thinking that what is the work of others is really your own, well, that's probably, you're getting pretty close to plagiarism. Some places say plagiarism, like if you haven't referenced adequately, we say it's plagiarism, and then the student has to say, well, look, it's not my fault, I just can't reference properly. But I was thinking about this misleading and deceiving aspect of plagiarism, and that's sort of something which probably needs to be developed. Yes, CQ University is working on developing a plagiarism policy. Yes, they've had one, but it needs to keep up with the times. It's probably one of the most important policies of an institution. And I think the other thing people need to realise is sort of what sort of may well be academic misconduct for, say, in terms of, say, a doctoral thesis or an honours thesis, is probably not necessarily the same in a first year assignment where people have come to the university and they're not exactly sure what is expected of them. They're trying to, most of them are trying to do the right thing, but it's where you copy directly. If you go and copy lots of stuff out of books or download it from the internet and you don't say exactly where you got it from, or you forget to do that, people might think that you're trying to mislead and deceive them into believing that's your own work.